Hello and welcome to Bharata First. I'm Frank Rausan Pereira, and here we are today to talk about the second episode in our series on the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. We had a great first episode, and today we are going to present to you the second episode with a stellar panel once again. And the topic in today's program is the IBC Insider. What is Creditor-Initiated Insolvency Resolution Plan? Now, this is something that's to come up in the days or months to come. It remains to be seen when exactly. And what kind of an impact is it going to have on the ecosystem? How is it going to pan out? And how should we be prepared for it? That's what we are going to discuss on the program today. And let me introduce the guests on the panel. Our guest of honor today is Gopal Krishna Agarwal, who is a CA and also the national spokesperson of the BJP and an economist as well, who's been on a part of several boards of several companies and who has done extremely well, really, as far as economic matters are concerned. Gopalji, namaskar. Welcome.
Namaskar.
Nice to have you here on the program. Also with us is CA Anil Goyal, who's the founder of AAA Insolvency. Namaste, welcome.
Thank you, Frank, for having me here.
And we also have Sanjiv Ahuja, who is an advocate and also president of Missing Bridge, which is a company that looks into matters revolving insolvency. They mediate and also try to help out people. Thank you, all of you, for being here. And Gopalji, let me start the program with you first. Before we get into CIIRP, let's understand the evolution of IBC and how we have reached where we are today.
It's my pleasure to be on this show on IBC. It's a very important reform that our government under Prime Minister Modi ji brought it. In 2016, two major big-ticket economic reforms were brought about. One was GST and the second was IBC. It was the hallmark of economic reforms that we brought about. The issue was at that time there was a lot of discussion that we have no ecosystem or rules and regulations where a respectable exit route for failed projects is there. That ecosystem had to be built where certain projects in the business, there are projects which can go wrong. So in those projects, how they can have a respectable exit for that. And it was brought with this intention. And it was more with the intention of not recovery for money for the bankers or the creditors. It was for resolving the bad project. It may be because some certain management were not efficient, or they were acting in a fraudulent manner, or they were the whole ecosystem changed, certain business environment changed, and therefore some project became unviable. To resolve those issues, it was brought in. And from 2016, lot of water has flown under the bridge, and it has been a hallmark of reform. But at this stage, there are certain bottlenecks which have been now seen as a challenge in the IBC, and bottlenecks, stagnations, certain issues have cropped up, and so therefore this amendment was brought, which you are talking about, some of the provisions of this amendment which was brought about in 2025 August 2020, and they are much needed. Various sectors have specific issues regarding their resolution, whether it is certain home buyers or other construction industry, other power industry. Different sectors have certain specific issues. But it has been a good road which has been traversed under the IBC. Now, if this new generation reforms come about, then it will help the business. It is one of the also an important step in creating better ease of doing business ranking for the country. So GST and IBC both have created a big ease of doing business, and even certain banks which were bogged down. We saw a huge increase in debt of certain banks and accumulation of NPA from 2006 to 2012. Huge bad debts accumulated in the banks. And that created complexities with the banking system also. Their balance sheets became weak. Their ability to give credit was also came under restrictions, all these, and their capitalization was a big problem. Their balance sheet required strengthening. And in 2014, economic survey talked about twin balance sheet problems. To resolve the problem of the banking system, strengthening their balance sheet, increasing their capacity to give credit, reduce their NPL levels, help into recovery. Those were issues at that time. And even at the corporate level, because of excessive lending to some of the corporate, they had an over leveraged balance sheet. So that also was to be resolved. To These three were the purposes: strengthen the financial institution banking system, reduce the companies which were over leveraged, reduce their over leverage on the balance sheet, and also for giving respectable exit route for industries, businesses which could not perform because of certain situations or which were not under their control.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Gopalji, for so beautifully, bringing all that into the picture and putting things into perspective for us. Let me now take the discussion forward with Anilji. Anilji, let's talk about CIIRP now. Technical, it's a mouthful as well. So when the terminology itself is so difficult, how difficult is it to understand CIIRP and why is it important? Tell us more about it.
So thank you, Frank. And as Gopalji has said, India has now seen insolvency law for the last 8 years. There are good experiences and there are some apprehensions in the minds of creditors, especially the banks, public sector and private sector banks. And they were basically losing some trust on the IBC only because of the delay getting orders from NCLT. So that was the feedback to the government of India. And based on that feedback, the government is now trying to give a teeth to financial creditors. That is the eligible financial creditors will be notified by the government, because probably it will start from banks, scheduled banks. And also what all companies can be covered under this new framework, which is called Creditors-Initiated Insolvency Resolution Process. In short, we can call it CIIRP. So far we have seen Corporate Insolvency Resolution Process, which is CIIRP, but now this is CIIRP, another I which is added, Creditors-Initiated. Now it is such a powerful law which is proposed in the IBC Amendment Bill 2025. So they have introduced one section 58, and in one section this entire, of course there are various subsections, the entire framework is defined. Now based on this framework, the creditors on any default, even without waiting for the account classified as NPA, they can immediately appoint an RP and give a public notice, public announcement for initiating CIIRP. So the basic difference is everything else remains same as CIIRP, but this is a concept of debtor in possession. The existing system that we have seen, CIIRP, that is creditors in possession. That means that the resolution professional is taking control and custody of the business and the assets of the company. In this case, the control and custody is not taken over by the banks or creditors or the RP. So the control will remain. The control and custody will remain with the company, with the promoters, with the directors. The directors will not be suspended, but without going to court, the financial creditor will be able to appoint an RP on the company. And then the RP will monitor. There will be moratorium based on a request by the creditors. There will be moratorium. See, when PPIRP, when this came, the banks had a kind of apprehension that in case we will start PPIRP, then there will be moratorium and we will not be able to recover our assets which are easily recoverable. So now the government has given them the option, whether you like moratorium or not. In case you like moratorium, you make an application to NCLT, and from the date of application, not the order, from the date of application, filing of the application, the moratorium starts. So that is basically cutting completely the delay of NCLT and giving teeth to creditors. I believe the protection is also given to the companies. A lot of protection. I will come when this protection will come, but this otherwise, this is a big teeth, and this will be used for the upliftment of the credit industry in the market. And also, India will not see most of the bad debts now. Borrowers will borrow only in case they are able to pay. That's what I want to say, Frank, on this issue.
Wonderful. Thank you, Anilji, for so beautifully simplifying this very complex matter for us. At the end of the day, I think in very simple terms, it is something that is going to help the creditors finally, and they'll be able to lend more freely. And you're going to have a more robust system, a system with more teeth, with better reforms. And that's the most important aspect. Let me bring in Sanjiv Ahuja into the picture as well. Let's talk about some of the other aspects, since we are speaking about how it's going to help the creditors and the ecosystem as a whole. We'll discuss more at length later on about the ecosystem. But before that, let's talk about some of the challenges and some aspects that we need to watch out for, really.
Sure. So thanks, Frank, for having me here. I think somebody should also contribute towards constructive criticism, if I were to say this. Picking up from what Gopalji said, IBC sure shot has been a game changer. IBC and GST both were, they came almost at the same time. GST is evolving and so is IBC, but IBC surely has been a game changer. We have seen the relationship of creditor and the borrower undergoing a massive change, right? So that was one. We moved from debtors in possession earlier, which was the First scheme, the earlier regime. We moved to creditors in control. Somewhere, I think, over the period, government and everyone realized that probably, one size doesn't fit all. So there was I won't say U-turn, but flexibility, which had to be incorporated. So kind of moving back toward debtors in possession through PPIRP, which was what Anilji also kind of referred to. Now, this was a pre-pack, essentially kept for MSMEs. So this was also a glimpse of the debtors in possession, which now comes as CIIRP. You are right, it's a mouthful. For a layman, on the street, it'll be like CIIRP and the PPIRP and all those things are going to be a tongue twister. But yes, we definitely also should look at, the complicated side of it, which can make it a bit messy. Let's understand, have we done enough analysis on PPIRP? Why it didn't succeed the way it was supposed to be? Somewhere I feel the 3 I's is where we are struggling: intent, interpretation, and implementation. Now, intent surely has to be good. A legislator, whenever they're sitting together, putting their heads together, they have to bring out policies which have to withstand the, atrocities of time and the inconsistency. I think the problem starts when we struggle with inconsistent interpretation. And a quick suggestion at times is have we taken the independence of judiciary and the legislature and the executive a bit too far? Can't we sit together and at least thrash out the interpretation issues, right? Why it should be that different people interpret a typical law, which is a static law, which is a document, differently. Suiting the context may not be a great idea. Third thing where we've been struggling is the implementation. Now, what can be those reasons? One is capacity. We've all been talking about the capacity. I feel somewhere, to an extent, capabilities and a cohesive effort where all the parties, all the stakeholders need to be together to try and ensure that it gets implemented once and for all. Because what was expected of IBC were 2 important things: certainty and clarity. So it has to be clear, it has to be final. If we go back and forth On one side, there's a school of thought where we say the regulator, the policymaker is agile. They have their ears on the ground. So in case there's a change required, they're very quick. Lovely, great. But the other school of thought is, are we not geared enough to preempt what can, what's in store, how it will be gamed, how it will be misused at times? So in between, I think we need to find the right balance. With respect to specific CIIRP, small challenges, which I'll just quickly share and probably, we can take it later. So the financial creditors with 51% can actually initiate. But the CD, the borrower, has an option to approach adjudicating authority with objections. That's the door for litigation, principles of natural justice. Then the prerogative of appointment of the IRP was always with NCLT. Here we are saying financial creditors can appoint. It's 150 days timelines instead of 180. We have already struggled with 180. Are we going to reduce, or we should give a bit more leeway? There is no default moratorium, which is something very significant we need to. And time and again we have read in the bill that in case of a delay, adjudicating authority should record the reasons of delay. And this at a time when we've been struggling between the tug of war, whether the timelines are directory or mandatory for whom. So I think these few points, again, as we say, devil lies in detail. We'll have to wait, for the regulations and the rules to come up. But these are points where, by the time it's being discussed, we should definitely have a peep a bit deeper to understand, are we doing everything right? Or it's going to be a new wine in an old bottle or an old wine in a new bottle. We'll have to figure that out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think time will exactly tell us where we go and how we proceed and what is likely to happen. Two I's in creditor-initiated insolvency resolution process. Two I's that I would like to take forward with you that we've raised just now, Gopalji. One is interpretation and implementation. That has been a challenge all throughout. You take any process, you take any law, any policy or anything like that, it is great on paper. But somewhere, there are some people who interpret it differently. That becomes a challenge as far as the system is concerned. And implementation also, many a times, is a challenge. How do you see that with respect to the IBC, the bill, and how do we go forward trying to bring all this together to have a robust piece of legislation?
We started with CIIRP, then we extended our discussion to CIIRP, and Sanjeevji added a third III on it. So on the basis of first intent, I think everybody is very clear that the intent was very good. It was positive for economic reform, mega reforms, and it was for resolution, not only for recovery of money. The challenge came with interpretation and implementation. Implementation level, government is already looking into various methods. IBBI has been given the mandate to regulate. I think we need to strengthen IBBI further. As SEBI has done for the capital market, it is not only regulation, but it has also to develop its market. At present, I found some challenges with regard to RPs finding proper work, that's one thing, that more the businesses, etc., should flow, and IBBI has to develop the whole market for the thing. What I would like to also mention here is, when any economic law is implemented, it cannot be implemented in isolation. For its success, it has to be multiple level of laws which will support the system. And for that, I think India is also lacking at point on contract enforcement. The implementation problem arises because we have weaknesses in contract design and capacity in contract designs in the business environment, and the ecosystem for contract implementation. Once there is a contract, it has to be looked into and implemented in that way. So the contract enforcement has to be strengthened. Second, I think, is debt market has also to be developed. We have a good developed capital market, but debt market is not that much depth is there in the debt market. That has to be also implemented. So I think on implementation level, we have seen GST and IBC were implemented at same time, brought about in the same time. And this is the 56th meeting in GST Council, which has made it such a wonderful law. And everybody is appreciating just now the mega reforms in GST Council has been taken. And we should understand that was the 56th meeting. How many meetings did we have in IBC reforms? We also need to move further that. So these are the implementation level of reforms can come only when feedback are there, more and more involvement of the stakeholders or actual users are there, and also segregating various sectoral rules and regulation has also to be implemented. I think what my understanding on IBC law has been that I have worked on home buyers issues. I find there are certain different challenges and concerns about them. They are not common to other sectoral industries. So we need to have sectoral rules also. One shoe fits all cannot be the solution for it. So for implementation, I think these are the issues. Other laws, supporting laws like contract enforcement, contract design, developed debt market, then sectoral rules and regulation for different sectors of industries is there, and their mechanism. I also find that the conflict of interest has also entered into the way RPs are functioning. Because at times, if the RP are given fee based on the month basis of the length of their services, then I don't find them focused on resolution of the conflict. So these are conflict of interest. These also have to be checked into the law, and this amendment, I think, will tackle all these issues. And interpretation, I would just like to say, is this judicial outreach on economic issues is harming the economic environment. We have seen Bharat Bhushan and other cases where finally everything was settled. So there has to be a closure of any decision. Multiple level of reviews. One review, if it fails, another set of review procedure starts. If that fails, then the third review process. So there has to be a closure on economic issues. And ultimately, judicial outreach has to be restricted. And infrastructure at the NCLT is not up to the mark. The level of work pressure on the NCLT and NCLAT, that infrastructure has to be more robust and built into. So I think as far as intent is concerned, everybody agrees.
Yeah, we are all on the same page.
Interpretation, there are concerns everywhere about the judicial outreach and capacity of NCLT to deal with the issues, etc. And on implementation, there are certain more rules, regulation, and other things are required, supportive laws ultimately. But this is a very good law. It is the need of the hour. And when we talk about Viksit Bharat for 2047, this is one of the big ticket reforms. And without being economic power, we cannot reach that position. We have to strengthen our economy, and then only if the economy grows at a fast pace, so then only we can achieve that goal. For that, we need big ticket reforms. Low hanging fruits are not there, and we have to move with this reforms, further strengthened economic reforms.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. And I think that we are moving towards that and heading in that direction, really, as far as reforms are concerned. All, cylinders and all engines need to fire together as one to bring about that kind of change, is what Gopalji is suggesting. Anilji, let me come back to you now. Let's, try to bring all of this together, because, we are talking about the 3 I's, we are talking about 2 C's, certainty and clarity, and so on and so forth. There are so many, things that we are trying to bring into this mixed fruit basket, so to speak. But, how do we ensure that the ecosystem as a whole, something that Gopalji was pointing out as well, is made more robust? Where do you see CIIRP headed, and how is it going to help the ecosystem?
Yes, I believe, Frank, in fact, some of the I's are still missing. In fact, we normally say that there is CIIRP, this is Corporate Insolvency Resolution Process. Then there is PIRP, Personal Insolvency Resolution Process. Then there is the PPIRP, which is Prepackaged Insolvency Resolution Process. And now we have the CIIRP, which is Creditors-Initiated Insolvency Resolution Process. Besides this, we have the liquidation process, we have the voluntary liquidation process, we have the bankruptcy process. So the entire law has been made for each and every aspect of the economy, and also basically to give an exit to a defaulted business or a failed business.
Sorry to interrupt, Anilji, but do we need so many processes? It just seems like, it's just too much.
No, yes, it's like in case we see,
at least for a layperson,
generally we need all this because this is applicable to different categories of creditors, and this is also not available for everyone. Like this new system, which is CIIRP, it is not available for operational creditors. It is only and only meant for the financial creditors, where the main economy, where banking, main economy, industrialization actually depends upon the financial creditors who give loan for setting up infrastructure, setting up factories, manufacturing, or even carrying businesses. So this particular CIIRP is only and only meant for the financial creditors, and that too financial institutions. What kind of financial institutions? That will be notified by central government. Interpretation and implementation, I think this is what is going on, and Gopalji has also said that, and Sanjiv has also said that. I have seen SARFAESI law since 2002, and I have seen different challenges and again interpretation or implementation. But see, based on all this feedback, in 2016 there was an amendment in SARFAESI law, and presently I would say that the SARFAESI law has become more robust, faster and cleaner as compared to what IBC was before this amendment bill. Now when this amendment bill has now come, let us understand what is the intent of the government here. The intent of the lawmaker is whatever feedback they have got so far, whatever challenges that they have got, whatever interpretation difficulties that they have found, based on all the feedback, all the amendments have been proposed now. Most of the amendments are for clarification, by way of an explanation, by way of an illustration. That means that when this original law was made in 2016, at that time also the intent of the lawmaker was this only. So therefore, whenever this amendment bill would be passed by Parliament, it would be applicable to all the existing cases and all the existing litigation will be over. Implementation, the present chairman and the other officials of IBBI, they are taking feedback every day. I would say, Frank, that yesterday only I attended 2 feedback meetings where I was invited by IBBI to give feedback on various challenges, various difficulties. This is what they take from everyone, not only from the insolvency professionals. They take it from bankers, they take it from lawyers, they take it from everyone. And based on all this feedback, then they propose to government regarding the amendments. In this amendment bill, this power has been further augmented. IBBI would be more empowered to make regulations. Gopalji has said that in this 56 meetings have happened in the GST Council. That means 56 amendments have taken place. However, when this code, IBC code, in fact was just like SEBI. SEBI can make regulations, IBBI can also make regulations. I think the IBBI has made more than 75 regulations so far. So what is that regulation? The empowered to make regulation is the immediate corrective actions based on the difficulties, challenges and feedback. That is what is the regulations as in the SEBI or as in the GST Council. So there is not required. See, although this amendment bill was little delayed, it was in fact required. It was required for this implementation much before. But yes, whatever has happened, it is kind of exhaustive. So all these challenges have now gathered together, and it is you can find it in the bill. Coming back to CIIRP, Frank, there is another protection which is built in for the debtor, for the industrialist, for the borrower. First of all, at least more than 50% of the lenders, they have to decide that they would like to initiate CIIRP for this company. 50% plus, they have to decide. Then they will give a 30 days opportunity to the company to correct the default or give a proposal. So 1 hour proposal is given, and that proposal has to be attended. In case that proposal is not attended by the creditors, this 30 days again will start. So there is a complete protection, although the teeth is there, but full protection is given to the industry also, to the borrowers also. Then if there is a misuse, like Sanjeev said, that we have seen debtor in possession regime during VIFR. This is also debtor in possession. The board of directors will run the company. Board of directors is responsible for keeping the company as a going concern. Board of directors is responsible for making all the expenditure. There are provisions that in case board of directors is not behaving as per law, then immediately this CIIRP can be converted into CIR. That means conversion to CIRP means that the control, custody, keeping the company as a going concern, bank account, everything goes immediately to RP in the supervision of committee of creditors. So these are various protection both ways. But the main important part of this legislation is that it is not depending upon any tribunal or any court. Like SARFAESI, the banks can go and take over the security, take over the asset and sell it. Similarly, in this case also, the financial institutions can take over the company management only for the purpose of supervision, only for the purpose of control, only for the purpose of restructuring or rehabilitation, not taking over the control, custody and asset. That is the opportunity. If the promoters are not behaving, then only the banks will do that. So there are protections both way. One is from the industry point of view, the other is from the lender's point of view.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that is very, very important aspect, and good that you so beautifully pointed that out to all of us. Let's take the discussion forward now. Let's look at another angle that we have not looked at, that is the human angle in all of this, because there are a lot of stakeholders involved, and there is lots that is happening all around the place as well when we look at IBC as a whole. And when we go into the specifics as well, lots of stakeholders involved. So what is the human aspect to all of this? What kind of an impact does it have there, Sanjeev?
Okay, so just linking it to your previous question and to the current question. So somebody once said, keep it simple, silly, right? So a lot of things have been over-engineered. And when you are saying that many stakeholders are getting affected, which actually is the case. So IBC is affecting not just the company, as in the CD. It is affecting lot many stakeholders which have an interest in that CD or the borrower, whether those are vendors, customers, their own employees, families of employees. So somewhere and I would not say that only one part, the professionals for that matter, IBC, there are 4 pillars which have been designated, right? Strangely, COC is not one of those, though it should be, unsaid pillar. But otherwise, we have IBBI, and then we have adjudicating authority, we have NESL, which is IU, and the IP. So IP is the fulcrum who drives the entire thing. If it's simple, right, we don't need another law going the way, income tax would go, and eventually the book will keep on, getting thicker and thicker. So somewhere, if it can be made simpler, what will happen is, as we were discussing about interpretation, it becomes easier. Implementation becomes easier. People are able to put their heads together and actually understand the way it needs to be done. In any case, we are not saying the law needs to be not clear or there should be gaps, but the only simple point is, with simple, easy to interpret, then the implementation by default becomes easier. People understand that better. There are lesser objections. There are, the gaming or the potential misuse reduces. Because as of now, what is happening is the more we try to do a patchwork, it kind of becomes a bit messy. As we were saying, this IBC is economic legislation. The two things, certainty and finality, which was expected, this was addressing the balance sheet, stress balance sheet of the banks. But what has happened is the COC, who we take it as the banks for normal, in normal parlance, is not only banks. Today, those bankers are sitting in a COC with fixed deposit holders, with HNIs, with NCD holders, and now finally with home buyers, who are also financial creditor. Any kind of a rule, regulation which is made for the COC, the charter, the code of conduct, what we've spoken many times, a heterogeneous body like COC is not going to be tamed through one set of charter. So looking and appreciating the heterogeneous factor, I think we need to be directing our solutions to respective stakeholders. That's important. And coming back to the impact, yes, it's not easy for the professional also to try and manage many companies, because time and again it has been said that RP or IP is de facto CEO or MD of a company. Now, you cannot be MD of 5 companies together. So if the companies are running, it's a going concern, then one needs to put in adequate focus. But you are a CEO or MD of a company in a adversarial or a non-conducive environment, when hostility is kind of given, from disgruntled employees and the promoter who's nurtured his baby for all this while, and suddenly he sees that it's slipping out of his hands. So from that perspective, it has definitely impacted. The work-life balance has gone, for a toss initially. Now with the changes, for example, IP entities, this concept has picked up much faster. I'm sure to an extent it is helping to fill that gap, where people get the support in terms of the infrastructure, the other professionals. So things are changing, but I think 8 to 9 years it has taken for us to, pick up some basics. And what is still missing is some specific amendments respective to COC, RA. RA continues to be the white knight. They are the survivor. They are the people who help you, closing the loop. So IP professional, RA as a white knight, and COC as a unsaid pillar. I think all these 3 people need to be further factored in terms of the amendments. So that probably should help.
I'm sure that is something that is on the cards, and it will happen in the days to come, because it's a work in progress. Just like the GST as well, there were baby steps, and today we are where we are with where GST is. So this will also eventually happen and take place, is what I'm sure about. Time to get closing comments now from all the panelists with the best way forward. Where do we go from here, and what next? Starting first with you, Gopalji.
I think this Amendment Act, IBC Amendment Act, is the way forward. And many of the challenges we have discussed here, and the challenges which are in the public domain being discussed by professionals and industrialists also, have been, government has tried to tackle them in this amendment. And I'll just put some of the points here, which are very important. What I think is that it has been referred to the select committee, and there's no timeline to the select committee. I would expect them to come out with their report fast, so that it is implemented as early as possible. It is very important. The challenge about diversion of funds by the promoters has been taken care under the head of group insolvency. It's an important initiative. And even at the global level, assets being distributed at different countries, and the integration of global economies there, regional and global supply chain issues are there. So cross-border insolvency is also being tackled in this amendment. And the issue about, I think IBC has one focus. It is resolution is more important, and it's not liquidation or recovery. That focus has to come back into the those people who are stakeholders who are involved into its implementation. And IBC should also, what we envisaged earlier was, it should act as a deterrent to default. It should create some kind of restrictions on the promoters, that default is a thing, it should not happen. So IBC's focus on deterrent, and I think for that out of court settlement, and where we have discussed a lot about CIIRP, it's before it goes to NCLT. So this is also very important initiative that we promote the out of court settlement, and IBC acts as a deterrent for people to not to default. There are amendment into CIIRP process. And earlier also we have seen about MSME promoters not being allowed to participate. Somewhere they were allowed in MSME issues. And NCLT, what was required about people, judicial outreach or activism. So mandatory admission, which was hindering that admission of some of the cases, has also been taken. So I think group insolvency, cross-border insolvency, and CIIRP process facilitating out-of-court settlement, mandatory admissions. There was a call about COC being empowered, creditors being more empowered. So over restricting the role of RP, controlling the role of RPs and actions at times. So for avoidance, transaction provision is there. So this amendment, August Amendment 2025 is very important, and that is one of the important futuristic roadmap which is required to be implemented as fast as possible. Another, as a professional also, I would request ki people have been coming to me, to the government also, this requires amendment, this change is required. But now in the select committee, they have a chance to give their opinion, utilize them.
Right.
Be active and give suggestions. Government is responsive. We want economy to be the ecosystem to be business friendly. So take this opportunity by professional and industrialists to give their suggestions to the select committee as soon as possible, so that final outcome of the bill is very effectively meets the intent and objective of the government and the people.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gopalji, for your concluding remarks. I think the key words there, we'll add another 2 C's, consultation and consensus. Yeah. And that's what's important, is what Gopalji is suggesting. And go ahead and give feedback. If you want a holistic law, when the bill and the select committee is discussing the issue, give as much feedback as you possibly can so that it can be incorporated and we get a holistic law. Anilji, closing comments from you?
Yes, Frank, I believe Gopalji has said one thing very important, that it should work as a deterrent for the borrowers. And I remember one of the word used by our chairman of IBBI once, that he said the best use of IBC would be not to use it. So that is the best use of IBC. The RBI and the industry always says that the red flagging of the default should be as early as possible. Now, in this case, so far, the banks were not really ready to do red flagging because there was no immediate solution available. Now, in case there is any kind of apprehensions of default, on the very first default, the banks will immediately red flag it. Once they red flag it, immediately the borrower will become alert. He would try to bring investment, or he will try to bring partners. In this process of CIIRP, there is going to be a very kind of increase in the M&A activities in India. Business is good, but there is some fund flow problem, and investors are not coming, because today, in case the investor comes, he is not sure whether CIIRP will start in 1 year or 2 years. Now, if a business is doing well, but there is some kind of loss, and there is the money is required immediately, and any investor wants to come, he will come only in case the CIIRP is started. He will come immediately. He will have a term sheet, and then he will come to the lenders that you please initiate CIIRP so that I can get protected from other creditors. I should also get moratorium. In the meantime, it would be restructuring, it would be amalgamation, it will be a kind of acquisition. Everything will happen through the resolution plan. While the company is continuing as a going concern, while some kind of interim finance is also given by the same investor, and the company is being managed by the board of directors only. So this is the best opportunity for mergers and acquisition in those companies where there is a little bit of stress. Early flagging and early resolution. This is what will be the outcome of the CIIRP. Now, I think the closing comment I can say that although the workload on NCLT is it would be reduced after this amendment bill is passed. But still, if the capacity, I have seen NCLT members working, they work a lot, but the volume of work is very high. So therefore, there is a delay. I think I would only request the government to increase the capacity of NCLT, because there are many people, my friends, who have actually become members of NCLT, and I have seen their life. They come full day, they hear the cases, and then they have to pass an order, and each and every order they have to read and then sign it. So this is where the delay and some of the implementation problems that I could see. So if the government can increase the capacity of NCLT, the entire, may it be CIRP, may it be PIRP, may it be PPIRP, may it be CIIRP, everything will be completely trusted by the lenders, and also it will reduce the load on the industry. It will give them a solution because of clean slate. Today, in case I want to invest in this company B, and I do not know what are the liabilities of company B, I do not know how much he is disclosing. So there is an apprehension. But in case I take it over under PPIRP or under CIIRP, that means I am getting clean slate. Anyone who has filed the claim, it will be resolved. Anyone who has not filed the claim, that will be completely extinguished. So therefore, the businesses will not close. The entrepreneurship will not close. The workmen and the employees will continue to work. The productivity will not be adversely impacted. The economy would continue to grow. Defaults will not happen, and it will be resolved early. The red flagging will happen early.
Absolutely. Very rightly pointed out. Okay, time to get final closing comments on the program. Sanjiv Ahuja, close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
Lovely. So I'll keep it brief. Just 3 macro points.
Right.
First is IBC is all about timelines. So certainty and finality, though it's a repetition, but it's important. The commercial ecosystem craves for that. Finality and certainty. Second thing, again, at the cost of repetition, interpretation, implementation, whatever needs to be done. There's enough from the ground in terms of experience, feedback, which the government, regulator, everyone has, that what is ailing the system, whether there's capacity, whether there's competence, whether there's capability, whatever it might be. At the end, put pieces together, create a new picture. That's the need of the hour. And the last third thing is, let us also do a stalemate assessment. What if some cases have been languishing on for 3, 4, 5, 6 years? There is something wrong somewhere. Have we done enough to understand what is ailing and what needs to be done to correct? Maybe the answers lie somewhere there hidden. So these 3 things, if they are taken care of, the right balance between macro and micro, I think we'll be making an amazing headway. So that is the closing remarks, I would say. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for putting things into perspective for us. I'd like to thank all the panelists here, Gopal Krishna Agarwal, Anil Goyal, and Sanjiv Ahuja. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being here, sharing those lovely inputs really on a very crucial and a technical subject as well. And thank you for so beautifully simplifying it for all of us. With that, I'll call it a wrap on this edition of Frank Talk. But since you're here, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share the content so that more people get to know about Bharata First. Until next time, this is Frank Rausan Pereira signing off.